That is what this Suns team is supposed to look like. A Game 4 win and a bonus episode of Locked On Suns coming to you after a victory. Let's talk about how the Suns found their swagger in Game 4 in Los Angeles. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 6 seasons, a writer at Suns.com, and the host of the Just Basketball Show wherever you get your podcast. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen post-game after Game 4. 112-100 was the final score. We'll get to it in a second. All of the great stuff to dive through in this awesome double-digit win, comfortable win. We're available on all podcast platforms, including YouTube, so go ahead and hit follow or subscribe if you have not already. Get this show in your feed every single Monday through Friday, plus some bonus content like this. Stay locked on to your favorite team. You can also follow along at Locked On PHX Suns, where you can give me your take on the game with the 7 words or less game take on Twitter after each game. We have at Javon4705, don't play with your meat, which is an allusion to Doc Rivers, not anything inappropriate. Please be nice there, everybody. And at 2 Trees G Price, let Westbrook lead the Clips scoring again. All right. 112-100. We're going to do a normal recap, but this one is so good that I might have to veer into a couple of different directions. I hope you'll give me that grace, since it is going to be so positive. I think after Game 3, the win, people were still a little nervous. People were still feeling a little skeptical, and this one, I think, extinguished any of that pessimism or doubt. And let's dive into that, because really, to me, the play of the game, the moment of the game, as I always start with, is this pass that Booker had to Kevin Durant midway through, early on in the third quarter. It was a skip pass to the left corner, which is hilarious. Once again, I'm always just going to have to take a second to laugh. It was 5 minutes and 19 seconds. I believe the Suns were down 1 in this moment. Booker gets the ball, top of the key, blitzed by Eric Gordon, who's guarding him, and Ivica Zubac as he comes from the top of the key to the right wing, coming off of a DeAndre Ayton screen. So they're basically blitzing, trapping, whatever you want to call it. More like a blitz in this case. Just like we saw against the Dallas Mavericks, just like we've seen time and again for the past 3 years, to try to get the ball out of his hands, to try to force him into a turnover, force him into a bad pass. But in this case, in case you might have forgotten, it's not Jay Crowder in that corner anymore. It is not Dwayne Washington Jr. in that corner anymore. And look, no disrespect to any of those players, but that's how far this team has come. Instead, it's Kevin Durant. That strategy does not work anymore. So Booker's coming toward that right wing. Because they're blitzing him, that means Marcus Morris has to come off of that weak side corner to help against DeAndre Ayton, who's rolling to the basket. The man that he's helping off of in that corner to get to the basket in front of Ayton, it's Kevin Durant. And it's 2 things about this, right? One is just how punishing the Suns are now offensively because of that talent, because of the fact that they can put a player as great as Durant in that spot, force the defense to make some sort of decision. You're either going to get a dunk at the basket for Ayton, or you're going to get a corner 3 from Durant, right? That's already bad enough. But it also takes a certain level of talent and skill and ability and reading of the game for a player in Booker's position within all of that to make that pass. I know it's been a while. It's not exactly like that's the first time we've seen such an elite skip pass from Devin Booker. That pass has been in his bag for a while now, but it wasn't always. that was a criticism of his game in some of those, like the last season before Monty got here, maybe even the first Monty season, where Booker couldn't always make that pass. And that's part of why the blitzing worked. That's part of why those stupid controversies about, junk defenses and pickup games and all that. Yeah, I guess I name dropped and put that reference, which is very outdated in a show after a win, but it's just to show you how far that's come, right? He knows the blitz is coming. He's seen it a million times at this point, and he knows exactly what the play is going to be. And again, because it's not those other guys who catch that ball, it's about as guaranteed of a bucket as you're going to find. An open Kevin Durant corner three, down one in a big third quarter moment on the road. I'll take that, right? Anybody, any head coach, any point guard, any star player, anybody would take that shot over any other option, right? And the Suns are able to create it just with something like that. And so that, to me, felt emblematic. It also, I believe the Suns took the lead and never gave it back after that. And that's, a big part of why I had it here as the moment of the game as well. It was the Suns hitting the gas and then keeping the gas down, because the Suns, the Clippers at the beginning of that third quarter, they go on a quick 7-0 run and they take a lead. Let's see what that lead was. It was 58-50, I want to say, somewhere thereabouts. 54-48. 6-point lead. They were down 1 to start the fourth. To start the second half, they come up 6. Monty calls a timeout. Suns actually turn the ball over again. So then it becomes a 9-0 run, and the Clips are up. That last score that I said, Suns adjusted, started going to Paul Ayton pick and roll, Durant Ayton pick and roll. Ayton got a floater and then a couple of opportunities at the free throw line there. Then you get that pass from Booker. Then you start to really kick it into gear. You have Plumlee comes onto the court. They're trying to attack him. They do that. They get Okogie as a screener. Durant gets a layup and a mid-range jumper attacking Plumlee and some other guys off the bounce. And then the last possession of that third quarter is Durant, patient, confident, cocky, ISO, left wing pull-up three, which we've seen from him a million times. And he makes it. And the Suns, again, do not relinquish that lead. There was also, I can't remember where it happened, but I believe it was in this third quarter. I think it might have been right before the skip pass that I'm talking about. I believe Booker had a pass in here to DeAndre Ayton on the lob. And I think it was a no-look alley-oop pass. It must have been in the second or fourth quarter, because I just did a search of the play-by-play and it was not in here. But again, I honestly think with that skip pass, if you go back and watch it, the Durant corner three, the pass to Ayton that Marcus Morris was trying to take away by rotating off of Durant was actually harder. It was actually a harder pass. And the last point I want to make on all of this, and it leads into what I want to talk about next, which is that my big takeaway from this game is the Suns are flashing their pick-your-poison impossible choice that they present to the opponent more and more game by game. And in this one, maybe more than we've seen. And I don't mean in this series, I mean since Durant got here. But as I'm talking about that play specifically, and telling you that I think that lob to Ayton was actually a harder pass, and that's funny that Morris took it away instead of the pass to Durant. This was also a great example of a play in which, and this is something the Suns I think started to crack the code of in game 2 in the second half, but then got away from it a little bit, is they are taking advantage of the Clippers overplaying, right? The Clippers know that this is a top-heavy team, and they're defending as if that's a top-heavy team, right? They are selling out to take away drives. They are, doubling and blitzing like I just talked about. When the Suns have tried to ISO Durant or Booker on the extended post or elbow extended areas like they often do, The Clippers are basically having their defender on that player stand their ground and then send their big man toward that side of the floor and then zoning up with the other three guys behind that so that they've forced a lot of turnovers that way. All these things that the Suns are needing to deal with because the Clippers are trying to say, make the other guys beat us, make the stars make difficult passes, all that stuff. And what Booker did, what he has done over and over the past 3 games, but I think especially in this one, was look at that, read that, and say, okay, I will make that play. And it's just, it's such a sign of his growth, but it is also a sign of how hard this team is going to be. Like, you can do the whole story of how much better he's gotten. Durant, Booker, and Paul combined for 22 assists and 7 turnovers in this game. They made those passes. They made the right plays that the Clippers were designed to give up. And Booker in particular just beat everything that was thrown at him. And that pass to me was a great example, as was the bonkers no-look to Ayton, which, I mean, I don't know if it really was a game-turning moment like this pass to Durant in the corner was, but man, they just dissected it. And we'll talk about that in a second. The pick your poison dilemma that the Suns are presenting to the Clippers, but also, look, it's time to start looking ahead what they will present to defenses going forward. We'll dive in a second. First, today's show, guys, brought to you by Nissan with their most electric player of the week. I gave it to Devin Booker on Friday. This is a bonus episode, so I will mix it up for you. I got to give it to Chris Paul. Again, in Crypto.com arena, the name might have changed, but Chris Paul's impact has not. Nissan's most electric player of the week is brought to you by the all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya. Chris Paul, when he's in this mode, and it's like you can watch him pass up threes, you can watch him, look like hesitant or whatever you want to throw at him, but he answered the call. He's done it 2 out of 4 games in this series. Doing it on the road when they needed him to do it in this game is about as electric as I can think of, about as stunning, honestly, and powerful of a moment as you can have. I mean, it was 2 years ago he did this, and we wondered if we would ever see it again. It wasn't quite 42 points in this case, but it was 19 big ones, and I believe 10 or 11 in the fourth quarter alone. The 2023 Nissan Ariya packs pin you to your seat power and premium intelligence all in one. EV, the all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya is the EV for people who love to drive. Shop now at nissanusa.com. Okay, so 112-100. Everydayers will be back on Monday with a in-between episode setting you up for Game 5. Suns have an opportunity to win a Game 5 at home, so hit follow or subscribe, get that show in your feed. As we keep the playoffs rolling, let's talk about the pick your poison dilemma that the Suns are forcing onto their opponents. And I say forcing, not just presenting, because look, you would have thought in Game 1 when the Suns rolled the ball out to start this series that would have been a strength, and exactly why a lot of people like me picked Suns in 5 and then started to really doubt ourselves when they lost Game 1. It's that they have the talent, right? They have the talent, and they have just enough in the way of role players that they can make life miserable on opposing defenses, but they forgot about that a little bit. I think in Game 2, they really did it in the second half. Game 3 got a little wonky. Game 4, I think they did it again. And the play I talked about in that last segment is a great example of what I'm talking about, but there were just a ton throughout this entire game, right? I thought that the Suns were... In the first half, I thought that they had the best success, to be honest, when they pushed the pace. And I want to talk about that a lot more in the last segment, but they ran into a little bit of a roadblock because it felt like Durant was uncomfortable pushing the pace. He had 3 turnovers in this game, but it felt like he lost his dribble and kind of looked out of sorts much more often than that. He got his shot blocked a few times. When the ball was in his hands, I don't think it felt as comfortable. They did a lot of great stuff right away in this game, getting DeAndre Ayton to get the ball closer to the basket. Sometimes that meant him just catching it closer rather than the free throw line, floaters, and jumpers that he has, to his credit, been making a lot in this series, but that's a tough shot to rely on. It's just hard for anybody to make it, right? It's also not the most efficient shot period, because even a good mid-range jumper shooter is going to shoot, 40-something%. Ayton's good but not elite there. So then you're talking about closer to, low 40s% compared to a layup or a three or whatever. So instead of all that, they got him to either catch the ball closer or catch it at the free throw line, but actually start to take some dribbles. And early in this game, he got a hook shot early by dribbling in. He missed it. He got another bunny that he dribbled in, missed that, but got the offensive rebound and drew a foul. So he got to the free throw line. He got 4 offensive rebounds, which I don't think is a coincidence that he was, again, putting himself in position closer to the basket rather than lingering in that free throw line area. And he ends the game 7 of 13 from the field, got to the free throw line 4 times, and had 4 offensive rebounds. Those are all very good things. But honestly, the part of how they've forced this dilemma on teams is to really transition quickly and read. I don't know if it's, Monty knowing, okay, whatever the Clippers lineup is, we're going to do this, or whatever the Suns lineup is, okay, we're going to do this from Monty's standpoint. I'm curious how they're going about deciding that. Part of me wonders if it's also just the players, but in an instant they snap into something else, right? And so they, effortlessly go into, at the end of that quarter, a Book, Shamet, Okogie, Durant, Ayton lineup where they're able to, they suffered a run there, but they had the ball in Booker's hands, which obviously, because Durant was turning the ball over and getting out of sorts, and then those were the only 2 stars on the court with Paul off, that was smart. Ball in Booker's hands to start the second quarter. They get a couple of bad plays out of that. Booker missed a pull-up 3, turned the ball over, missed a layup. It's getting ugly. You start to wonder, but then Book sits for a moment, and that's really when things flipped. The Suns went on an 11-2 run with Booker on the bench. Then he finally came back out, and that led to the beginning of the third quarter run and everything else, and the Suns taking that lead. Late in the game, you had Durant start to figure things out. They were getting good minutes out of Bismack Biyombo as a roller. They were getting good minutes. Durant with some just quick jumpers. They were isolating him at the top of the key. They were running the Durant-Ayton pin down, and the ball movement was just great. The ball movement was great. And I think that's a statistical sort of box score way to represent what I'm talking about. The assists were not amazing, right? 25 to 13 turnovers. Ricky Rubio and Devin Booker used to have 30 assists, 8 turnover games, right? We've seen the 0.5 stuff work better in the past for the Suns, but they were 9 of 22 from 3. Paul did take his catch and shoot threes. Durant and Booker were getting catch and shoot threes once again because they were helping off of those guys. Those 3 players end up being the only ones to get those threes, but I even thought, Craig had some open ones. Lee and Shamet, Okogie, all those guys had open threes. They just happened to miss them all. To me, this was one of the better 0.5 games. This was one of the better possession pace games that the Suns had. And when you're so effortlessly able to say, all right, this lineup is in the game, that's a point Book lineup, the ball is going to be in Booker's hands. Or even if Chris Paul's on the court, Booker is hot. He's going to run the offense for a moment. Okay, maybe when Durant is hot, maybe when Durant is the best scoring option on the court, maybe we do slow things down again, right? The Suns players being able to process that stuff in real time, the coaching staff giving them that feedback, whatever that communication funnel is, that is what they're starting to figure out. That is why, for a long time, up until we knew who the first round opponent was going to be, I was really hopeful that the Suns could get an easier first round opponent because I knew that some of that stuff would still need to be sorted out. It's one thing to have the talent. It's another thing to be able to figure out how to use that talent. Kawhi not playing in these games is a humongous bummer. It just is. You can be a Suns fan, and I think you can still maintain that it just sucks as a basketball fan, and I think as a person, Kawhi is not just any injured star. He is a guy who every year at this time of year seems to miss games, seems to have, serious injuries crop up. It sounds as if this right knee thing happened in game 1, and he's not able to be, I say he's not able to be himself in game 2. He was pretty amazing anyway, and then misses these two. You listen to Chris Haynes on the broadcast, does not sound like Kawhi is going to play the rest of this series. That sucks. But even with Kawhi in and Paul George out, that presented an opportunity. Now the Suns can just take care of business, try to win this series in 5, and yet they've still faced an opponent that's taken and pulled the absolute most out of them. And so I do think, pressure creates diamonds, whatever little cliche phrase you want to use, that stuff's true. And the Suns have been pushed, and now it feels like in this game, with all of those adjustments and reading of the game and sharing of the ball and attacking of mismatches and opportunities, they have now started to develop instantaneous answers for whatever they are seeing. And that is all you can hope for. That's how a top-heavy, star-heavy team needs to play. That is how the Suns are going to win. Let's talk about not controlling the possession game, mastering the pace of the game. And I'll give you my box score oddity, which is a fun one, and a little bit on the bench and what the rotation might look like as we go forward. First, today's show, guys, brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit. Or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Closing out the show, box score oddity. It's a little bit of the advanced box score over at cleaningtheglass.com, so you'll forgive me. I think that it's not coming from, the traditional points, rebounds, assists, statistical categories here. But look, I would honestly go back to, if I was doing that, controlling the possession game. The Suns once again did that. They had a ton of offensive rebounds. They were low turnovers. They were even with turnovers with the Clippers. And then they had almost 3 times as many free throws. That's going to be a great recipe to win the game. But that happened in game 3, and I told you about that already. So in this case, we're going to go to the advanced box score, and we're going to look at the transition stats, all right? So I'm actually going to go to Northern California for a moment before, just to give you some context. So Sacramento Kings are playing at a breakneck speed in their first-round series against the Golden State Warriors. And in particular, every team runs when they steal the ball, right? If you get a steal, if you cause a turnover, it's a golden opportunity to go run in transition. Any idiot would know if you have the ball against a scrambled offense and you're at half court already picking up a steal, go dunk it. That's easy, right? You just got to create the steals to make that happen. It's something else to run off of rebounds. And so again, the Sacramento Kings are running off of those rebounds more than half the time. They are blowing out any comparison points with how much they are doing that. It's been about 50 to 55% of defensive rebounds that they are turning into transition opportunities. So you think a shot misses, you have to really be committed to running to get an opportunity in transition off of a miss. Okay? Off of a make is another level, which the Kings are also doing, but let's focus on misses, rebounds, defensive rebounds into transition. So that's the benchmark of the absolute most is 50 to 55. The Suns tonight were 43%, which across all games in the NBA this season, that puts them in the top 10 percentile. So you think the top 10% of all games played, how teams attacked off of defensive rebounds, the Suns are in the very upper echelon of that. 43% of the time. Almost half the time that they get a rebound off of a Clippers miss, they turned that into a transition opportunity. They were able to add 3+ points to their overall scoring per 100 possessions just by doing that. So if they hadn't run, they would have scored about 4 points less in this game. Still would have won. I suppose, and that's all obviously estimated based on what the stats are telling us, but that's excellent stuff. And there was a report from Chris Haynes during this game where he was talking about what Monty's message was in the huddle and this and that. And then he talked about what Durant's message was in one huddle. And he said, whenever you get the ball, push the pace. Whatever we're wanting to do on offense, do it fast. Do it with purpose. And especially for that to come from him is kind of surprising because not surprising, but impressive and admirable. Because like I told you, I actually think in that first half, one of the problems was when Durant tried to push the pace with the ball in his own hands. That was where the Suns ran into some trouble. And that's why he got off to a rocky start. But in spite of that, the Suns continued to dedicate themselves to pushing the pace, and it really worked, as you can see from that. You couple that with the offensive rebounding, the free throw advantage, low turnovers. It's just really hard to beat. You kind of don't even, no matter who it was, if Mikal Bridges was still on this team, the Suns would have had a really good chance of winning this game by owning so many of these categories. It's a good thing to continue to do. The Nuggets love to come out swinging. When they start to get rolling in transition is when you should really be afraid of that team. So stacking that stuff up is going to be, and committing to it is going to be huge for the Suns as they go forward. You cannot just play a half-court game and say, oh, we have better players. No, you gotta create additional advantages and opportunities for your role players to be even better, right? All right, last thing, bench mob vibe check as always. Josh Okogie, 25 minutes, and I thought this might be the game where we finally see the trust factor and Okogie reminding the coaching staff why he makes an impact, why he's valuable, even if the three-point shooting hasn't been as good as Craig, the size obviously is not going to ever be the same. He's not going to grow anytime soon. But when he's out there, they're able to just do different things. Josh Okogie is about as high IQ of a basketball player as you will find for somebody who is known for being an athlete and an energy player, right? I think guys get sort of, if you can't shoot, you just become an energy guy because people need some way to explain what you're doing out there, right? And it's like, okay, he's an athlete. He can block Jalen Green's three and run it down and dunk it. Energy guy. That's what you are. That's all I need to know, right? I'm going to classify you that way, and that's that. No, Josh Okogie is a really smart basketball player. There is a reason that Monty Williams and James Jones felt like he could fit in this situation. And the thing I will point to specifically is obviously the cutting, the timing on that takes a certain level of awareness, but the Suns are finally using him as a screener. And if you remember, if you're an everydayer, all the way dating back to last September, I'm not sure how many of you have been with me that long. I know I've gotten a lot of new KD stands and Suns bandwagoners, which I love each and every one of you, don't get me wrong. But if you were listening in September when I was previewing the season, I told you Okogie in the Gary Payton II role, similar to how the Golden State Warriors use that guy. If you remember last year's finals, even in the Kings series now, he missed game 3, but you know what I'm talking about. Play aggressive physical defense, but then use him as a big man on offense, right? Bruce Brown does this, or at least he did with Durant in Brooklyn, not so much with the Jokic team now in Denver, but those guys are the blueprint, and the Suns are finally starting to do it. It's one thing, I thought it would come back then, crazy to think how far we've come. I was like, when Dario Saric is in the game and he can space the floor, you can use Okogie as your roll man because Saric will create openings in the lane and then there will be space for him to roll. Times have clearly changed, and I kind of thought, okay, maybe when Durant is at center, it'd be a time when you could use Okogie as a screener, and they have. But I think using Craig as a screenner so often when Zubats was on him in games 1 and 2 allowed the Suns to get comfortable with that, and now they're using Okogie as a screener. Even when Ayton is in the game, right? Ayton will be maybe in the dunker spot there, and they're totally fine to still use Okogie as a screener and get good stuff off of that. And I think his ability to pass and make the right play, sometimes even just a quick dump off on the short roll to Ayton, so he's going to catch the ball at around that free throw line just like Ayton does. But because Ayton is standing in that dunker spot along the baseline, that pass is there, and it's just very quick and easy if Okogie's watching for it, which, again, because he is such a high IQ player, he is watching for it. It's all right there, and obviously the defense and those hustle plays are always going to be a factor. There's my soliloquy, my love letter to Josh Okogie, but I'm glad that he's finally playing more minutes. Last point on him is, as we look forward, which I don't think is getting ahead of ourselves, look, there's not a lot of time. The Nuggets look like they might sweep, so this second-round series might be starting before we know it. Okogie on Jamal Murray is going to be huge, and I think he will start in that series if it comes to be. If the Suns can take care of business, if Denver keeps rolling like they have, the Suns will have a very different matchup on their plate, and I do think Okogie is going to be the guy to chase around Jamal Murray in that two-man game in transition. When Murray's the only Nuggets creator on the floor, which they do a lot, Okogie's going to be even more valuable. So it's good that his trajectory right now, he's riding good momentum, making an impact. Last quick things, rotation-wise, Damian Lee finally in that second half surpassed Landry Shamet in the rotation. I do not think Shamet played at all in the second half. Lee did for a moment at the beginning of the fourth quarter. Lee did not get a lot offensively. In the last game, he made 2 threes. In this one, he was 0 of 1. But I think he can continue to... He's just as good of a ball mover to me as Shamet is. Defensively, sure, I guess you would say Shamet's maybe 5 to 10, 15% better than Lee, but they're the same size. Lee is at least a C+, B- on defense, and maybe Shamet is a B or a B+. I don't know. It's not that big of a difference. And if Lee's going to be more aggressive, shooting the ball and moving without the ball and all that stuff, you got to just lean that direction. If nothing else, play the more confident player, which Lee definitely has been. All right, that'll wrap us up. Bonus episode for you guys. Hopefully you enjoy that. 112-100. We're headed back to Phoenix, and this series might be over as soon as Tuesday. So enjoy it. Everydayers, I'll be back Monday with Brandon Duenas, getting you ready for Game 5, maybe starting to look forward to the Denver series. We shall see. In the meantime, listen to Locked On Sports Today on Monday morning. Get your update on everything you need across the sports world. I'll talk to you guys then.